Hey everybody, this is Nemo once again from the Overclocker magazine. So I'm here to talk to you about the Spectrix D60G and the D50 memory. So you might think to yourself, how come this guy is always reviewing the same D50 memory? Well, they happen to be different bins. So we're talking 4133, and the second review I did was the 3600. So both of those happen to be B-die as well. So just in case you're wondering, I'm just giving you some context into how we ended up here and what it is I'm going to present to you today. But anyway, so I ended up with two sets, the 4133 and the 3600 again, which were both B-die, and oddly enough, the 3600 kit ended up being better. However, after I made my whole song and dance about that memory, and you can check out that review by clicking, I think, the link above or below in the description. After I did my song and dance about that memory, a few people went out and bought the memory, and only to find that they had the E-die instead of the B-die that I got. So I started to think, okay, so if you're in that situation, what do you then do? Because it's pointless for me to say, oh gosh, this memory is amazing and all of that stuff, only to find that when you go and buy and spend money on it, you end up with a different IC. And talking about that, the only way I've been able to at least discern what are the B-die versions or the Micron E-die versions is actually in the naming on the memory itself. So I have one stick here. This is the D50Gs. I'm not sure if you can actually see it, but this one was the E-die version. Actually says DT50 here instead of ST50, which was on the B-die version of the memory. Now, this is something you're not going to be able to see on the box when you're making your purchasing decision or even when you're ordering online, because lo and behold, the timings that the B-die version and the E-die version are sold at are exactly the same. So we're talking 1820 and 44. That's what we're talking about. So if you look at something like that, it doesn't really tell you if this is E-die or B-die or anything. So it's just luck of the draw essentially. However, I'm not one to leave things just to chance. So I took this opportunity to reevaluate the memory, the Spectrix D50, given that most of the ICs people are getting are actually the E-die versions. So I think this evaluation of that memory is more in line with what you might experience rather than the amazing B-die versions that I got for some reason. That said, we also have the D60G as well, which is also based on the Micron E-die. So comparing these two memories, I had thought that the D60G was supposed to be the higher end version. But it turns out if you look at the pricing, so that's the pricing for the D50s and the D60G, they're actually 2,100 or in 2,088 respectively. In fact, I think, yeah, the 2,100 is to the D60Gs, so you pay like, it's less than 20 bucks more at Progenics at least, compared to the D50s. Personally, and this actually speaks to the aesthetic element of this memory, or at least these two sets of memory, I prefer the D50s, right? This is not a performance thing, it's just a visual aesthetic thing. I prefer the D50s. However, when the memory is running and the system is powered on, definitely the D60Gs are just superior. So since we are already talking about the aesthetic element of the memory, let me bring up the both sticks for you. So this is the D50, you've actually seen this before. So the D60G, everything lights up here. What you see here in these plastic parts, everything actually lights up, whereas on the D50s, only the top diffuser lights up. So in terms of just looking at them at face value, this definitely feels like the more premium kit. I mean, this aluminum heatsink gives some sort of heft to this memory that this plastic shroud, I don't even know, is this a heatsink? I don't think we would call this a heatsink. This plastic diffuser here definitely makes the RAM feel a little bit, I don't know, let's say value orientated, if you will. So that's the plastic part of this, whereas this feels like premium memory. If this was supposed to be the overclocking memory, I would believe it, potentially because it runs cooler than this memory as well. Right? But anyway, so we have two sets of memory here. Like I said, they're both rated at 3600, CL18, 20, 20, 44 or something of the sort at 1.35 volts. You buy such cheap memory and make it do something amazing, make it do something that would otherwise cost you twice as much, if not more. So with the D50 kit, the E-die version, I was able to do 4800 stable, so 24/7. Now this is on an AMD platform, and the board of choice again is my favorite one, the ASRock D550 Phantom Gaming ITX AX. You can also check out that review in the link below. So with the D60G on the other hand, I didn't fare so well. So it turns out that the maximum frequency I could do with this particular set was 4400. So I think in that regard, this memory, the D50s, yes, ended up being better than the D60G, but that does not mean necessarily that that will be your experience, because again, these are the same ICs, Micron E-die, same PCB, everything is exactly the same. In fact, right down to both of the memory kits not having a thermal sensor. Now, a thermal sensor is something that I would like, especially given that you are dealing with memory that you might want to overclock that is potentially voltage sensitive. So a thermal sensor does help, but it's not a train smash at all. And once again, you paid what, 2,100, 2,088 for the memory, so thermal sensor is a luxury at this point. It's the cheapest memory you can actually buy locally. And I'm talking performance memory here, not like the cheapest green PCB stuff. I'm talking performance memory that actually is performance memory, not Hynix C-die or a low bin B-die or something of that nature. These are actually good ICs that's on this memory. And I mean, geez, 4400 on the D60G is really impressive, and obviously 4800 on the D50s is even more impressive. And even going further than that, I could actually do DDR4 5000 on the D50s. Now, I couldn't necessarily get that to work on every motherboard. In fact, it only worked on this particular motherboard with one specific BIOS, that's the P1.5 BIOS, and it wouldn't work with any other BIOS. However, given that we could actually reach 5,000, I think that speaks well to a set of memory that literally costs 2,100 or thereabouts. So in as far as overclocking headroom goes, I definitely think that there's some potential in the D50s and obviously in the D60 as well, but just so much more in the D50s. And of course, I've just had a lot more experience with the D50 memory than I have with the D60G. I only have a sample of one. The D60G. So it's not anything against the memory, it's just my experience. Now, obviously, this memory performance might change in future as BIOS updates change and so forth. But right now, I did find that at the very least, you can get 4400 off either kit of memory. So overall, I mean, you can see the benchmark results for yourself at the end of this video. There's no reason for me to go through them with you. You can definitely tell that the OC results are significantly better than what you get at stock. Having said that, I don't do much optimization of the subtimings anymore because it just takes too long. So I'll do the basic stuff like TCKE, I'll do the TRP, TCWL and things like that, if only the motherboard doesn't tune these itself. But for the most part, I'm really not going to bother with that. I'm just going to go for maximum frequency and the tightest primary timings. And that's going to give you the sort of performance that you are actually able to get here. So for those of you who did buy the D50s, based on what I had said about mine being based on Samsung B-die, go ahead and get the normal E-die version as well. There's some really awesome headroom to be had here. And by the way, this one kit did 5,000, but I had tested other kits as well that were E-die, and they all did 4,800. I think the worst one like did 46, but all the other ones did 4,800, and this one particularly did 5,000. So obviously your range will be anywhere between 4,400 and 5,000, but I'm thinking most of you are going to end up at 4,600 at least, but don't quote me on that. Overall, that's all I have to say about the Spectrix D60G and the D50 line of memory. Once again, fantastic memory, fantastic value for money, and yeah, definitely check that out at Progenics if you can. Until then, check out the benchmarks, remember to share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Take care and peace.